Hey guys, today we're on the public test server for patch 7.0, and we're going to be talking about the prestige perks, and more importantly, whether or not it is worth it for you as a player to go back through your class 4 times, de-level, re-level to get these perks. And right now, hot take, I don't think that these perks are going to make people want to go back through their class 4 times. I am a huge proponent of progression systems in games. I think progression systems are the single most important thing for like 99% of shooters to keep people playing, because most people are not playing a game because they want to get better at it. Like, that's part of the experience for a lot of people for sure, and there will always be a niche community that just loves to challenge run stuff in games like Devil May Cry. But in a game like this, in a horde shooter, people want to have like titles to unlock. They want to have perks to unlock. They want to have new builds to unlock, new weapons to level up, and like that's what keeps people coming back. And going through your class 4 times to get what comes out to really be like 2 good perks and then like 5 mediocre ones for half the classes right now, I don't think that's it. And there was a huge outroar, or I should say like an outcry on the forums for this. Like, the most upvoted post I had was talking about like just hating on the idea of getting rid of the perks, and I kind of agree with them on this, that getting rid of your perks of prestige in this game is just kind of a stupid idea. This isn't like this isn't like Call of Duty, where you go back through and you have all your leveled up guns and you like to unlock your perks so you can slowly try out new stuff. This game has like what I would say quote unquote proper builds, and some of those builds and some of these classes just do not function properly without some of their perks. Like, let's say if you're using a Thunder Hammer in this game, your Thunder Hammer works best when you have Zealous Blow. And if you don't have Zealous Blow on the Assault class, this class just feels worse to play. So what you're asking players to do is like go back through the game to play their class again, except the class they've been enjoying, and they have to play it in a way they hate. Which would be, you're playing your class in a less fun way to get perks that don't matter that much. I just don't think like that's very enticing to a player to go back in and play for 40 hours. Well, 40 hours is probably an exaggeration, but to go back through and play like 30 hours, 20, 30 hours, level up their class again, that's just not very enticing. And this kind of brings me into another thing I want to talk about here, or really rant about, to be honest, which is the utter lack, or the cataclysmic lack, of proper cosmetic customization in this game, or ordeals that give you cool customization, because we had the ordeal update a little while ago in patch 6.0, and this next update needs to be a banger. But the ordeals, let's go into the actual menu here. Why not? We'll go a little out of the armory for a second. So here we are with the ordeals, and I would call most of these ordeals donkey ass, and especially the Eternal War ones. These ones can suck my ass in particular, because I'm just never getting these. And that's okay to have like, PvP ordeals for stuff like that. But the issue I have is that I shouldn't have to play PvP to get like to choose, or basically you have to choose which cosmetic you want to get for your PvP game or your PvE game, because you can only get so many before you're locked out and have to eventually do the Eternal War missions. So right now, things like the Traitorous Thunderhammer and Honored Auto Bolt Rifle, these are things I'm probably just never going to get in this game, or like maybe I'll get one of them by completing all the other ordeals and then never get the other one. I think that's just stupid, because if we go back into the armory hall and we check out the actual armors, things like this, the Relic Secundus in this one, that's just the assault armor, but things like this you can unlock in both operations and PvP. If you play like a set amount of PvP matches, you unlock this. You play a set amount of operations, you unlock this. I think that's a better idea. And if we look back at a game like Halo Reach, where Halo Reach had a firefight mode and a PvP mode, and you could earn credits to unlock armor in both modes, I think that's just a better idea. And having like some specific unlocks that are tied to like rank, or like in your PvP rank or stuff like that, I think that's fine too. But for the most part, I feel like having overlapping systems is better. And when it comes to the game in general, this game just, it feels like we're content light at the moment. And like I said before, 7.0 has to bang, because it has been a while since we had a good update in here. And I just don't think 7 perks for every class and a new mission is going to do it. Though I will say the new mission is a lot better than the previous obelisk they released, because it almost feels like they released Chaos because like, oh, we have to release a Chaos mission. But if they just released like 3 more Tyranid missions after launch, I don't think anybody would have complained, because Chaos is just currently a little lacking, and I don't think that's a hot take to make. But point is, I think this game's drip Drip Fest, the Drip Fiesta, your customization is just not very good. And when you go onto the Nexus mods for like 5 seconds, you can legitimately double your armory by what people have made on the Nexus. And a lot of it's lore accurate too. And Games Workshop gets a lot of shit for being like, oh, they're too hands-on. But Games Workshop is also a company that gives out their IP like crazy. Like, if you just look back on Steam, and speaking of Steam, this is the most played Warhammer game ever. If you look back on Steam, there are so many 40k games that break lore all the time and do crazy shit with their stuff, and people always say like, oh, they can't do X, Y, or Z. That's just like completely unconfirmed as to whether or not they can or cannot do certain things because of lore breaking, because Games Workshop breaks their own lore with their books all the time. So I don't think that's a reasonable thing to say, especially when we don't have any like actual statements backing it up other than Games Workshop are kind of dicks. Which is kind of true. But the main thing here is just these new prestige perks, asking players to go back through for like 40 or 30 hours. It's not fun for them. And this game, you should really look at games like Darktide for its progression systems, or like if you're gonna make people prestige, give them some titles, give them some borders for their characters, give them a showcase of their playtime, giving players an option to show other players that like, oh, I've played this much, oh, I've completed this difficulty. Those are healthy for games, and you know, maybe there's some elitism that can be like pop up with that stuff, but you know, that's going to be in games no matter what, just because, you know, if anything has any type of unlock or any difficulty level, especially in PvE games for some reason, that's just what happens. But they kind of try to do this with things like the Battle Worn Pauldron or stuff like the Survivor Helm, and I think these are good ideas. I will say, all these cosmetics look lazy, especially this one. This is an ugly ass piece of armor. Like, maybe some people like this, but like, I think this thing looks like trash. And like, maybe if you mix it with this one. But a lot of these unlocks and like a lot of these new armor bits, they only work for like one chapter, and that's not really what people want in the game. And I know I'm talking a lot about cosmetics here, but the reason I'm talking about cosmetics so much is that for a lot of people, the reason this game is so popular and still played is because it is one of like the only quote-unquote AAA 40k games that you're going to be able to play. And you know, playing as Space Marine chapters, that's a huge part. Space Marines are like one of the most, arguably the most popular part of Warhammer 40k, and people like dressing up their dudes, and giving them more options to dress up their guys is good. But I will talk about the Bulwark next, because the Bulwark has like his new cloth stuff that he can change, because like now you can change your cloth. I know, ain't that neat. I know we're kind of going off the prestige perks right now, and I'll get back to them in a little bit, but you know, for the most part, I just don't think those are worth doing. But this new cloth stuff is just kind of mid, and it looks worse than what the actual mod authors came up with, because mod authors in this game have come up with some really cool cosmetics, and if they legitimately just took their ideas, or like took their textures, or you know, maybe don't take their textures, that'd be pretty bad, but if you took their ideas and like tried to replicate what they did, that would be much better than this, because this one just looks fucking ugly, okay? I'm gonna be honest, this is way worse. And I have some shorts on this channel of like Black Templar stuff that had like the actual Black Templar logos on the cloths and stuff like that. And this might mean nothing to somebody who doesn't care about 40k, but to 40k players, which is a lot of this game's audience, that means a lot. And it wouldn't take them a lot of effort to do these things, but I'm not really all that surprised, because there's also stuff in this game that some of you may be unaware of, but like some of these company markings are like genuinely incorrect. Okay, well, we have the wolf and stuff here, but they're genuinely like backwards. Like, I believe the 8th and 7th company are swapped. There's just little stuff like that would never bother a normal person, and I don't really think it's a big deal, but the point is, it's like there seems to be a little bit of a lack of care for the cosmetics in this game, and this game sold 4.5 million copies. Like, that is not a small number, and it just kind of feels like Games Workshop just kind of either Games Workshop pushed them, or Saber Interactive themselves have been pushed over to go do Space Marine 3, and they're just giving us what they were drip feeding. I know this game is not technically live service, so it's kind of hard to complain about something they didn't promise us, but it is disappointing to watch a game that succeeds so much just like not really support itself on a level that players would like to play it. Because when Helldivers 2 came out, Helldivers was not intended to have like the absurd support it has now, but upon its success, the company was like, did the smart thing of like, oh, our game is hugely successful now, and we're gonna go and, you know, double down on releasing content for it. And a lot of people thought this game was gonna do the same thing, but instead they are trying to move towards Space Marine 3, and we're just getting the drip fed content and the paid for DLC content. And having players pay for like 90% of the cosmetics in this game is kind of ridiculous to me, when like the free updates aren't even that good. Half the time the free updates are actually better than the cosmetic DLC they come up with, but I digress. My point is, I don't think 7 prestige levels for each class for like mediocre perks is really worth going back through your class over and over, especially when you have things like removing their core perks, because half these classes aren't very fun to play when you don't have the proper perks for them. A lot of people already have issues with this game's replayability because we just have a lack of unlocks, and both of the new weapons we've had added have been sidearms, and that just is, that's kind of subpar if you ask me. And though the game is in a better state than launch, like, don't get me wrong, all the patches have made the game better, the balance is better, the game is more fun to play, there's more to do, but it does feel for the most part like we are fixing problems that were just there since launch, and some of these problems are still here. Like, perks like this have been shit since day one, and they just haven't been fixed, and that just is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, that's really all I want to talk about in this video. I don't think the grind here or the progression system here is really worth doing for a lot of players, and if they really want to keep players here, they got to give them something notable to do, and I feel like perks are the easiest way to do that, and you could probably make a more interesting system than just having like 4 prestige perks, or 7 and then slotting in 4. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Let me know in the comments below. You might not care at all about the heraldry or the prestige system stuff, or you don't really care about the grind, and that's totally fine. But if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching. Also, fuck Tao.